The thing is, I did not bring Elias to Maury because I was scared. I brought him there because I was certain. 2 cameras, 1 DNA envelope. And of course I thought the whole country would watch him apologize. I had practiced my face for the moment they said he was the father. I had not practiced what to do when they said nobody on that stage was. My name is Maya Whitaker. I was 32, and I handled admissions at a private preschool where nervous parents paid to believe their children were entering a stable world. The thing is, I was good at making disorder look cared for, which is different from being calm. 2 folders, 1 blue pen, and of course I thought control was the same as truth. The art supply room smelled like glue sticks, washable paint, and the orange cleaner Nina used when someone spilled juice near the cubbies. I stood there after pickup, lining up parent interview forms by colour while June slept in her carrier near the door. 4 months old, pink socks half kicked off, one hand open beside her cheek like she had dropped an argument before it started. Elias came late from the hospital. His shirt collar was bent, and his badge was still clipped to his pocket. He carried a clean bottle, extra wipes, and the tiny white hat I had forgotten in the dryer that morning. That was Elias. He remembered the things that made life work. He did not always remember to make life feel warm. There had been real things between us. When I was 8 months pregnant, he came home after a double shift and painted tiny clouds on the nursery wall because I said plain white looked like a waiting room. He had paint in his hair for 2 days. I used to leave preschool stickers on his lunch bag when we were first married, little gold stars and apples, and he kept them stuck to the inside of his locker. That should have mattered more than it did. He lifted June from the carrier and checked the bottle temperature against his wrist. Then he asked softly if something had changed between us since she was born. He said I looked at him like I was waiting for him to accuse me of something. What he meant was that he missed me. What I heard was that he had already begun measuring me. Of course, I told him nothing had changed. I said I was tired. I said parents had been difficult. I said babies made everyone strange. He nodded, but his eyes went to the little box in June's diaper bag. The blue hospital ID bracelet was inside it, still curled like a tiny plastic question. Later, Kayla leaned into my office doorway and asked if my husband had become one of those men who needed a spreadsheet for fatherhood. I laughed before I decided whether it was ugly. That night, Elias stood in the nursery doorway with June asleep in his arms, looking at the bracelet like it knew something neither of us had said. The lounge event was supposed to be easy. Preschool donors, small plates, a silent auction, parents pretending they cared about early childhood art more than tax receipts. The room smelled like citrus peel and old wood, with purple light shining up the walls because someone thought that made childcare look modern. The thing is, I liked those rooms. I knew how to stand in them. I knew when to laugh, when to lower my voice, and when to make a worried mother feel chosen before she handed over a tuition deposit. 2 trays of champagne, 1 name tag. No reason to feel like someone else's wife. Taryn Ellis was managing the guest list near the front. I had met him twice before through Kayla, who knew everyone who worked doors, music, lighting, or guest flow in our part of the city. He was 29, clean jacket, quick smile, and the kind of attention that arrived without asking permission. He did not ask about June first. That was the first thing I liked, though I did not call it liking. He said I looked like the only person in the room who knew where everyone belonged. Then he said motherhood had not made me disappear. That sentence touched a place Elias had not reached in months. Elias loved through order, feeding times, pharmacy runs, insurance forms. He knew which bottle nipple June hated and which night cream I had stopped using because the smell bothered me. He could keep a household alive with one tired hand. But during pregnancy, when fear moved through me like weather, he kept answering with schedules. At 32 weeks, I cried because I could not find the hospital folder. He printed a new copy. At 35 weeks, I told him the baby had not moved enough that morning. He counted kicks and called the nurse line. At 37 weeks, I said I was scared of becoming someone's mother while still feeling like someone's daughter. He asked if I wanted him to move his hospital shift. Of course, I told myself that was the problem. He brought solutions when I needed proof he was afraid to lose me. At the lounge, Taryn asked whether my husband liked events like this. I said Elias liked knowing where the exits were and whether the parking ticket needed validation. Taryn smiled like I had given him more than a joke. Kayla, standing beside the bar, laughed into her glass. My phone buzzed at 9:17. Elias asked if I was heading home soon. I looked around. The silent auction table was already being cleared. Nina had left with the preschool director 10 minutes earlier. The donor couple from room 3 was standing by the coat check. I typed that the fundraiser was still going. It was a small lie, small enough to step over. The thing is, lies do not need size when they already know the door. Taryn walked me outside because rain had started, thin and cold. He held his jacket above both our heads while the rideshare driver circled the block twice. He said Elias sounded like the kind of man who needed proof because instinct was not enough for him. I should have corrected that. I should have said Elias had painted clouds on a wall after work, had slept on a hospital chair when June had jaundice, had learned the sound of her hungry cry before I did. Instead, I smiled into the rain and said Elias trusted facts more than people. Across the street, Bryn was leaving the bakery with a pink box in both hands. She saw Taryn's jacket over my shoulder. She saw my phone face down in my palm. She saw enough to lower her eyes and keep walking. At home, the apartment smelled like sterilized bottles and lemon dish soap. Elias was at the table, June asleep against his chest, one tiny fist pressed into his shirt. He had not turned on the television. His phone lay beside a folded burp cloth. He asked why Kayla had posted the empty event room at 9:05 when I said the fundraiser was still going at 9:17. Specific, factual. One named thing. That was how he came to fear. He brought a time, a place, and a question, and expected those to be softer than accusation. I heard him building a wall. I told him he was counting my movements because he could not stand that motherhood had not made me smaller. He said he was not counting. He said he was trying to understand why my story did not match what he could see. What he meant was that his trust had found a crack. What I heard was my father at a church picnic when I was 9, asking my mother whose child my baby brother was, while potato salad sat uncovered on a folding table. He had been wrong. The later test proved it. But everyone heard the question before anyone saw the paper. That was the part that stayed in me. A woman could be innocent and still become a rumor first. I told Elias that if he wanted a lab report for a marriage, maybe he should say that. His hand moved on June's back, slow and careful. He said he wanted his wife back, not a report. That should have slowed me down. Instead, the softness made me angrier. The next morning, Kayla shut my office door and told me men like Elias never apologized unless the room was too big for them to manage. I said there was no room big enough. She opened her phone and sent me a casting link for Maury. She said if he wanted proof, I should make him hear it where he could not organize the furniture first. I laughed. Not because it was funny. Because for 1 second, the idea felt like air. By lunch, Bryn had texted asking if we could talk. I answered with a heart and no words. Nina stopped by my desk for extra enrollment forms and did not ask why my eyes were red. Kayla stayed close, bright and thrilled, like I had handed her a match she did not have to strike herself. That evening, Elias rocked June near the nursery window. The blue hospital bracelet sat in its little box on the shelf. Ordinary. Small. Still ours, I thought. Of course I had already opened the link. Bryn's baby shower brunch was held in the back room of a cafe with yellow balloons tied to every chair and lemon cake placed too close to the sunlight. The whole place smelled like sugar, coffee, and the warm paper from gift bags. I had June in a soft blue dress, Elias beside me with the diaper bag, and Kayla across the table watching me like she was waiting for the first spark. The thing is, I did not plan to announce anything. At least that was the clean version I liked. 2 pacifiers, 1 pink gift bag, and of course I told myself I was only answering what people had already made heavy. Bryn looked tired but happy, one hand resting over her stomach while her sister arranged tiny cupcakes on a tray. Aunt Laurie sat near the wall with her purse in her lap, the same way she sat in church when I was a child, and my parents still pretended not to hate each other. Nina came too, because preschool people always became family for a season before drifting back into work schedules. For the first hour, everything was gentle. Someone said all newborns looked like old men or potatoes until month 6. I said June had Elias's serious forehead when he was judging bottle brands. People laughed. Elias smiled, but his fingers tightened around the bottle. I saw it. Of course I saw it. I told myself that if he could not survive a joke about his face, that was not my emergency. Kayla leaned forward and said, maybe Elias needed a certified lab to confirm the forehead too. The table changed in small ways. Bryn lowered her cupcake. Nina looked at Kayla, then at me. Aunt Laurie's eyes moved to June. I could have left it alone. Instead, I picked up my mimosa, though I had barely touched it, and said maybe a certified lab was exactly what he wanted. I said maybe we should all watch him get his certainty on Maury. Someone made a small sound. Not a laugh. Not a gasp. Just the sound people make when a joke walks too far and still expects company. Bryn said my name quietly. Kayla laughed once, bright and quick. That laugh gave me permission I should not have taken. I told them I had already applied. The words came out smoother than I expected. I said Elias had spent months acting like dates mattered more than my word. I said if he wanted proof, he could be wrong in front of people. I said some men only learned shame when a room handed it to them. Elias did not shout. He did not correct the story. He placed June's bottle on the table and wiped 1 drop of milk from her chin with his thumb. That small action made me look louder than I wanted to look. He asked if we could speak outside, quiet, direct. No anger for the room to grab. I said he always wanted private rooms because private rooms let him sound reasonable. My voice stayed light, which mattered. Lightness makes cruelty look like confidence when people are afraid to stop it. Aunt Laurie told me not to do this with the baby in my lap. I said the baby was the reason I was doing it. That was my first public lie that used June as a shield, and the room heard it before I did. Elias picked up the diaper bag. A side pocket was open and the little box with the blue hospital bracelet slid out onto the table. It tapped against a cake plate and stopped near a smear of frosting. No one moved for 1 second. The bracelet looked wrong there. At home, it was memory. On that table under yellow balloons, beside women who suddenly would not meet my eyes, it looked like proof waiting for an owner. Bryn picked it up. She did not hand it to Elias. She handed it to me. Her face had changed, not into judgment exactly. More like she had stepped behind a door I could not open from my side. I put the box back in the diaper bag and said everyone was acting like I had done something terrible. Elias looked at me then, not hurt in the way I could use, not angry in the way I could resist. He looked tired of asking to be protected from my certainty. He carried June into the hallway. I followed because staying at the table would have made me look abandoned. Near the coat hooks, the cafe sound became soft. Cups, spoons, someone laughing too loudly in the front room. Elias adjusted June's blanket and asked whether I wanted the truth or only witnesses. That question should have landed clean. It did not. I heard control. I heard a man trying to take the stage away before I could win it. I told him he had made me live under suspicion, and now he did not get to choose the size of the room. He said he had never called me unfaithful. He said he had asked about dates because fear had made him stupid, and because no answer I gave stayed still long enough for him to hold. I said he should have trusted me before he needed math. That was not entirely false. He had counted calendars while I was pregnant. He had checked shift dates against doctor appointments. He had once asked if I was sure about the conception week, and the question had sat between us for months like a stain nobody cleaned. But being right about one wound does not make every weapon clean. I did not know that yet, or I knew it and stepped around it. Back inside, Kayla was quieter. She kept stirring her coffee after the sugar had already dissolved. Nina helped Bryn's sister clear plates. Aunt Laurie took June from Elias and held her facing away from the table, as if the baby needed to be protected from adult faces. I sat down and smiled because stopping would have admitted that I heard the room. Bryn did not sit beside me again. She moved one chair over to help her sister write gift names on a notepad. Kayla sent me a text from across the table saying I was brave, but when I looked up, she was not smiling. The brunch ended early without anyone naming why. Elias packed the diaper bag slowly. He checked the side pocket twice before zipping it closed. That should have seemed ordinary. With Elias, ordinary was always where the meaning hid. Outside, rain had started again. Aunt Laurie kissed June's forehead and told me that a baby did not need to prove an adult point. I told her she was still living inside my mother's old shame. Her face closed. That night, the Maury producer called. I took the call in the bathroom with the fan on. Elias stood in the nursery, rocking June in the dark, and I told myself the stage was already waiting because the truth had chosen my side. 2 nights before the flight, the apartment smelled like warm plastic from the bottle sterilizer and the garlic rice Elias had made but nobody had eaten. The Maury producer's video call was open on my laptop. A woman named Dana smiled from a square on the screen and asked me to tell the story again, but with the emotional part clearer. The thing is, I knew how to perform emotional clarity. I did it every day for parents who wanted to hear that their children were special but not difficult. 2 release forms, 1 ring light, and of course I told myself this was just another interview. Dana asked why I wanted the test on television instead of privately. I told her Elias had made me defend myself in my own home. I said he doubted me during the most vulnerable year of my life. I said I wanted him to hear the results somewhere he could not turn it into a spreadsheet. In the kitchen, Elias was washing bottles. He did not come in, but the water stopped running. Dana asked if there was another possible man. I said no too quickly. Not because I believed yes, because Taryn's name had started moving around the edge of every room. There had been messages. There had been the lounge. There had been one night after a preschool charity planning meeting when Taryn drove me home and we sat in his car longer than necessary. I had not given those moments names because names make things solid. The thing is, I was still treating fog like it could not leave footprints. After the call, I closed the laptop and found Elias standing near the sink with a bottle brush in his hand. He asked why I had said he made me defend myself, when every time he asked one thing, I turned the question into a trial against him. Not one incident this time. The pattern. He named the fundraiser lie. He named the brunch announcement. He named the way I said his doubt had started before he ever spoke, as if I needed him guilty enough to justify the show. I told him he had been checking dates since pregnancy. He said he had been scared. He said the conception week did not match what he remembered because he had been on night shift, and when he asked, I punished him for using the only language he knew. His voice did not shake. That made it harder to dismiss, so I dismissed it faster. He said he wanted to be June's father so badly that he had been afraid of asking the question wrong. Then he looked toward the nursery, and for the first time, the room had no defense for either of us. I had a reply ready about trust. I had one ready about control. I even had one about my father and my mother and the church picnic where accusation became a public stain before proof arrived. But Elias looked simply sad, not strategic, not cold, not busy building a case. For one breath, there was no enemy in front of me. Only a man who had painted clouds on a wall and now did not know whether he belonged under them. The bottle sterilizer clicked off. That tiny sound opened the door. On the counter were the travel papers Dana had emailed. Beside them lay the blue hospital ID bracelet, still in its little box because I had brought it out for the producer to see on camera. Elias picked it up with 2 fingers. Not like evidence. not like a trap. He opened one drawer, found a small white envelope, and slid the bracelet inside so it would not bend under the forms. His hands were careful. That was what nearly got me. The same hands that had learned how to hold June's head. The same hands that had tested milk against his wrist. He was not trying to win a scene. He was making a place for the only object in the room that belonged to a child, not an argument. For a second, I almost saw it. I almost saw that the show was not a stage for truth. It was a room I had built so my fear could have witnesses. June had no voice in it. Elias had no safe place in it. I had turned a plastic bracelet into a prop and called it proof. Then I saw the printed forms beside his laptop. The door closed. Of course, I told myself he was preserving evidence. Elias with his dates, Elias with his records, Elias with his clean little envelopes. Softness from him could still be control wearing tidy clothes. I asked if he was organizing against me now. He looked at the envelope in his hand and said he was organizing because somebody had to protect what could still be protected. I told him that sentence sounded rehearsed. He put the envelope into the diaper bag and did not answer. That silence became the floor for the next 2 days. Aunt Laurie called the next afternoon. Her kitchen fan hummed in the background, and I could hear dishes knocking in the sink. She said Bryn had told her enough. She said I needed to stop before June became the thing people remembered before they remembered her name. I told her not to speak to me like my mother. Aunt Laurie said my mother had been accused in public and proved right in private, but that did not mean every public stage was justice. I said she had no idea what it was like to be doubted by the man who was supposed to hold you. She went quiet. Then she said she knew more than I wanted her to know. After that, the call had no place to go. I tried a microshift that night. Not remorse. Something more useful. I made Elias tea and told him maybe I had been loud at the brunch because I felt alone. The sentence was partly true, so it came out smooth. He accepted the tea but did not drink it. He said feeling alone did not explain why I had given producers our child's story before giving him a private answer. I told him I was trying to include him now. He said I was trying to make the decision feel shared after making it alone. The controlled tenderness failed. Worse, it gave him another clean sentence. Kayla's messages changed too. Before, she sent flames and laughing faces. Now she answered slower. When I sent her a voice note about Elias sleeping in the nursery chair, she replied hours later that I should be careful. Careful. That was the word people used when they wanted distance without paying for it. Bryn did not answer at all. The night before the flight, Elias packed June's things with a method that made my skin tighten. Diapers, formula, blue blanket. Court-free, lawyer-free, ordinary items, but each one folded into place like a decision. He placed the bracelet envelope in the side pocket and zipped it shut. I told myself he was overperforming fatherhood because he was afraid to lose the test. He slept in the nursery chair again, one hand resting on the crib rail. The hallway light cut across his shoes, still on his feet, as if he had only meant to sit down for a minute and had stayed because leaving would require choosing. I stood there watching him until June made a small sound. Of course, I told myself he was doing it for effect. The Maury backstage makeup room smelled like hot curling irons, stale hairspray, and coffee that had burned too long in a glass pot. A production assistant clipped a microphone to my blouse while another woman dabbed powder along my jaw. The mirror lights were too bright, and every face in the room looked borrowed from a life that knew how to perform. The thing is, I had prepared for this, or I had practiced being calm. 2 cameras outside, 1 DNA envelope somewhere in the building. No reason to lose my shape now. Elias stood near the door with June's diaper bag over one shoulder. June was with Aunt Laurie at the hotel, away from the studio, because even Dana had said babies complicated live audience energy. That phrase stayed with me. Live audience energy. As if the problem was timing, not what we had brought here. Elias looked tired, not angry. Tired in a way that did not ask me to fix it. Taran was supposed to be in the building by 9. At 9:10, he sent that traffic was bad. At 9:30, he wrote that producers were making this bigger than he agreed to. At 9:40, he asked if his name could be blurred if things got messy. Of course, I told myself he was nervous. Men like Taran were not used to serious rooms. He liked music, doors, drinks, fast looks across low light. This place had release forms and hallway cameras. That did not mean he was leaving me alone. Kayla had promised to text before taping. I sent her a photo from the makeup chair with my hair pinned back and the caption that I was about to make Elias apologize. The message showed delivered. No typing bubble came. Elias watched me put the phone down. He asked if we could leave. Not run, not hide. Leave. He said we could do the test privately. He said we could protect June from becoming an episode people replayed when they wanted to feel better about their own homes. He said nobody in that audience needed to know her name. That was his final offer. Clean. Plain. A door with no decoration. I heard fear. I heard a man trying to shrink the room because the room might not choose him. So I stood up carefully because the microphone wire tugged at my blouse, and I told him the one thing he could not argue with. I said he checked dates, shifts, and calendars while I was pregnant, but he never once asked how scared I was. His face changed. Not much. Elias never gave much away when pain arrived, but his eyes moved from mine to the floor and stayed there. He could not refute it because it was true. He had brought me facts when I needed him to sit beside me without a solution. He had made fear into math. He had made my body feel like a timeline. For 1 second, I had him. Then I used that truth like a blade. I told him he only wanted privacy now because he was afraid to be wrong publicly. I said he had made me feel watched for months and now wanted applause for acting protective. I said he did not get to choose private dignity after making private trust impossible. The production assistant stopped adjusting my wire. She looked into the mirror instead of at us. Elias lifted his head. He said he would handle things properly after the taping. No legal words. No threat. Nothing I could quote later without sounding dramatic. But the room changed around that sentence. It had the tone of a drawer closing. I laughed once and told him proper was his favourite hiding place. He did not answer. He checked the diaper bag strap and moved it from one shoulder to the other. That was the silent decision marker, though I called it nerves. He was no longer asking me to understand. He was carrying what he needed and letting the rest of the room do what I had asked it to do. A producer came in and said Taran had arrived. He entered with sunglasses on his head and a face that had already chosen distance. He hugged me with one arm, fast, loose, the way people hug when they know cameras may be nearby. He did not look at Elias first. He looked at the producer. He asked whether he had to sit on stage the whole time. Dana told him the segment had been adjusted because his messages were part of the story. His jaw tightened at messages. Not baby. Not father. Messages. I told him this would clear everything. He said he hoped so, but his eyes were on the exit sign. Agenda B was there in front of me. I did not have that language yet. I only had excuses. He was under pressure. He was protecting his work. He was not used to being blamed by strangers. He was not as calm as Elias, because Elias had made calm into a weapon. My phone lit again. Kayla had reacted to my backstage photo with one grey heart. No words, no joke, no voice note. The enabler's absence arrived so small it almost looked like nothing. The thing is, Kayla had been loud when the idea was still imaginary. Now that the hallway had studio staff and real names on release forms, she had become a tiny symbol on a screen. I put the phone face down. Bryn had not answered since the brunch. Nina had stopped asking anything except work questions. Aunt Laurie had taken June for the day but told me before leaving the hotel that she was doing it for the baby, not for me. My circle had not exploded. It had thinned. That was worse because thinning lets you pretend the room is still full. A man with a headset called our names. The audience noise pulsed through the wall, clapping for someone else's disaster. My mouth felt dry, so I reached for a paper cup and missed it the first time. The makeup woman looked away politely. Elias stepped aside to let me pass first. That courtesy angered me because even now he could make himself look decent without trying. As we walked down the hall, Dana reminded us to answer clearly and not talk over the host. Taryn fell behind to ask another producer something about how long the segment would air. Elias walked beside me, but not close enough for our sleeves to touch. I said he was quiet for someone about to be proved wrong. He looked at the stage door, then at the diaper bag in his hand. He said he hoped, for June's sake, that I was right. June's sake, not our daughter. The words entered the hallway without raising their voice. That was the first time he had stopped saying our. I wanted to turn and punish him for it. I wanted to tell him that language did not get to leave before people did. But the stage manager had already opened the door. The lights were white and hot. The audience lifted their faces. Somewhere beyond the cameras, the envelope was waiting. Elias stopped speaking after that, and his silence was more frightening than any accusation he had ever made. The stage lights made the host's cards look too white. He read our names, the timeline, the question. Maya had brought her husband Elias to prove he was June's father after months of doubt. The audience made its first sound, hungry and ready. The thing is, I had imagined that sound as support. 2 couches, 1 envelope, and of course I thought certainty would know where to sit. I said Elias owed me an apology as a husband and as a man who doubted the mother of his child. Elias said he wanted June protected and the truth handled cleanly. The audience went uneven at that. Clean did not give them a side. Taryn sat on the second couch because the producers had added him after reading the messages. He looked irritated, not devoted. When the first envelope opened, Elias was not the father. Sound rose around me. I gripped the armrest and tried to speak, but my tongue kept touching the back of my teeth without making a sentence. The second envelope opened. Taryn was not the father either. The studio went silent in a way I had not prepared for. Not polite. Not shocked. Empty. The host looked from the card to me and then to Taryn. Taryn stood before anyone told him to move. He told a producer he was done, then walked off through the side exit. Elias looked at June's diaper bag, not at me. He removed the small envelope with the blue hospital bracelet from the side pocket and put it inside his jacket. A week later, I was at the county family court intake office because Elias said we needed clarity. The waiting room smelled like copier heat and wet coats. Bryn sat 2 chairs away, hands folded around her phone. A clerk named Mrs. Harlan handed me a packet. The document was titled, Petition to Disestablish Paternity and Notice of Court-Ordered DNA Testing. The next step was listed clearly. North River Family Lab on June 18th, then a status hearing on July 2nd. I signed for the packet, set the pen down too carefully, and rubbed a blue ink spot from my thumb until the skin reddened. I said the show result should not count because television was not court. Mrs. Harlan said the court was not using television as the final test. She said it had the petition, the birth certificate, the sworn request, and the scheduled lab appointment. I tried to say Elias had humiliated me by letting the episode air. Bryn looked at the floor. That was when my version failed to land. Taryn sent one message saying not to involve him again because he never agreed to family court. Then he blocked me. I moved with June into Aunt Laurie's spare bedroom, where the curtains had yellow flowers and the crib barely fit beside the dresser. Elias separated the accounts and paid only the temporary amount listed in the court notice. Bryn stopped answering late calls. Kayla disappeared completely, and Nina spoke to me only about classroom schedules. Taryn deleted every tagged lounge photo and told people he barely knew me. The preschool director removed me from parent interviews after 3 families mentioned the Maury clip. The thing is, I thought the stage would protect me because public truth had once been the thing my mother was denied. Of course, I had not brought truth there. I had brought a baby, a husband, and a wound old enough to sound like certainty. Elias had been wrong to make fear into calendars. I had been worse to make a child into proof. The blue hospital ID bracelet was not in the nursery box anymore. I wanted the whole studio to hear the truth, and the truth did not know my name.